Sample company purchased delivery truck on June 1st, 2010 for $85,000. The truck has an estimated useful life of 5 years and a $10,000 residual value. It is now December 2013, and Sample's in the process of preparing the financial statements, and we need to complete under each of these independent cases the capital asset section on the balance sheet, assuming the company uses the following three methods. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to answer this first part first, because the second part talks about a change, a revaluation of estimates related to the truck. So I'm going to break out the question into two parts. The first part is essentially calculating the amortization based on the following three assumptions. The first one is straight line. The second one is double declining balance. And the third one is a units of production. So let's take a look at the first one first. Under the straight line method, we need to calculate the amortization. So it's the cost of the asset, $85,000, minus the residual value, which is $10,000, divided by useful life. In this case, it's 5 years, to give us the amortization of $15,000 per year. So the amortization for 2010. Now, when did we purchase the asset? We purchased the asset on June 1st. So assuming December 31st year end, June to December is 7 months, because this is June 1st, the beginning of the month. So we're going to take 2007 is 7 months. So we're going to take 15,000 times 7 over 12 to give us the depreciation expense is $8,750. The net book value of the asset is, take the $85,000 minus $8,750 gives us $76,250. So this is calculating net book value. So I just want to show you how the calculation, and this is the amortization expense, which is how this number comes about. Okay? In 2011, we have the full year's amortization, so 12 months. So that we know is $15,000. And net book value will be $76,250 less 15 to give us $61,250. 2012, same amortization for 12 months. And that's another $15,000. And net book value is $46,250. 2013 is another 12 months. Net book value is $31,250. All I'm doing is taking the net book value of $46,250 minus the amortization or depreciation expense for the current period to give us a net book value at the end of the period. 2014, again another 12 months. Now 2015, how many months? Well, it's 5 years. And remember, we bought it on June 1st, so there's only 5 months of amortization. So it's 15,000 times 5 over 12 gives us 6250. That's the amortization. and net book value is 10,000. And this makes sense because this net book value at the end of its useful life should equal the residual value. So the question asked us, what is the December 31st, 2013? Well, December 31st, 2013, the net book value should be 31,250. So that should be what the answer to the question. It says sample wants to determine the capital asset section of the balance sheet. It should have a net book value of 31,250 at December 31st, 2013. Now, let's look at double declining balance. What's the second assumption? Under the double declining balance, so DDB, we need to calculate the rate. So the double declining rate equals 1 over straight line times 2, because it's double, right? The straight line is 1 over 5 years times 2 is 40%. That's the amortization rate. So for the first year, so 2010, the amortization expense or the depreciation expense should be 86,000 times 40%. But remember, this was only 7 months, so there's a proration. So 7 over 12 to give us 19,833. That's the amortization expense or depreciation expense. And net book value is going to be 85,000 minus 19,833 gives us 65,166.67. That is the net book value. So this is the first year of amortization. Notice when I calculated the amortization or the depreciation expense, I don't take the residual value into account in calculating the depreciation expense. I only factor in the residual value, the 10,000 residual value, only on the last year of amortization. So let me show you. In 2011, remember this is 7 months. In 2011 is the full 12 months. The net book value is 65,933. So hold on, let me check so I've got 85 minus 19,833. That should be 16,166. So this should be 65,166.067 times 40%. This should be 26,066.68. That should be the depreciation expense. And the net book value is 39,100. In 2013, the net book value is 39,100 times 40% to give us the depreciation expense of 15,640. A net book value will be the difference between these two is 23,460. 2013 is 23,460 times 40% 9384. Net book value is 14,076. For 2014, we're going to calculate the same way. And you see that the amortization is 5,630. Net book value is 844,560. Now, remember, the net book value can never be less than the 10,000. So the fact that at the end of 2014, the amortization would put you below, the net book value would put you below the 10,000, we're going to make this 10,000, which means that this number is going to be adjusted to be 4076, because if I take 4076 from that, that means that your net book value is 10,000. In other words, your net book value can never be less than $10,000. So this is the difference. Under the straight line, you can see that we took away the 10 to calculate the depreciation per year, so that when you depreciate the asset for 5 years, you'll see that the residual value equals the net book value. Under the double declining balance method, you'll see that we have to plug the last year of amortization, so we have to be mindful of this calculation because the net book value can never be less than the 10,000 residual value. So remember, this 10,000 is important because that's the residual value, which means that for me, the depreciation for 2014 is going to be a plug for 4,076 to force that net book value to be 10,000. So to answer the question, it says December 31st, 2013, the net book value is this number here. So that's going to be what the capital asset would show on the balance sheet. Now, let's take a look at the third part of the question. And this one is using the units of production. So let's go back to the question. It says the units of production use the following estimate. So there was 100,000 kilometers that we plan to utilize this truck. And you can see that for the first year, because we bought it on June 1st, the number of kilometers is only 7,000. So in this case, the number of kilometers have already been prorated for the short period of use in 2010. So there's no need to prorate. Do you know how we prorated under the double declining and straight line method for 7 months? In this case, we don't need to do that because the kilometers of 7,000 is already the prorated number. Okay? So under the units of production, first we need to calculate the rate. So we call U of P. First we need to calculate the rate. And the rate is, we're going to take the 85,000, the cost, subtract the residual value of 10, divided by the 100,000 kilometers that we plan to drive. So we're told that it's going to be 100,000 kilometers in total. So if you add all of these, you get to the 100,000. And that's going to give us a rate of 75 cents per kilometer of use. That's going to be our depreciation rate. So, to do the units of production, we're going to track the number of kilometers used for 2010, 2011, 12, 13, 14, and 15. So let's just write down what we do, what we're given to us. This is the total number of kilometers. The depreciation expense is going to be, take the kilometers times the rate. In this case, it's 75 cents times 7,000 to give us 52.50. You do it exactly the same way. So take the 20,000 times 0.75 is 15,000, 14,250, and 6,000. So altogether, we're going to amortize by 75. Then that makes sense because we can't amortize the asset below its residual value. So we know the net book value at the end is going to be 10,000, which is the residual value. And the net book value is going to be, take the 85 less the 5250, gives us 79,750. So let me just show you the first one. And then take the 79,750 less the 18 to give us 61,750. And this is 45,250, 30,250, 16,000. So take the 30,250 less the 14,250, 16,000, and this is the 10,000. So to answer the question, what is the net book value of the asset at December 31st, 2013, it would be this number. Now, let's look at part 2 to this question. So the part 1, so really what I've just shown you is the 3 different amortization and how to calculate the amortization expense. Now, in 2012, now the date is very important, September 2012, management has reevaluated the estimates related to the truck. And what we're asked is, we're asked to compute the amortization expense for 2012 and 2013 only for straight line and double declining using the following 3 or 4 cases. Okay, so for double declining and straight lines only for A, B, and C, and for D is the units of production. So what this question, part 2 of this question, part B, is basically showing you how to account for a change in estimate. So the first one, it says the total useful life of the change to 8 years instead of the original 10, or sorry, the original 5. So let's take a look at how this would impact the calculation. So let's look at case A. So case A is we're changing the useful life from 5 years to 8 years. And this change happens to be on September 1st, 2012. So let's go back to our original part 1 to the answer. So we know that the amortization of the old was 15,000 back in 2010. So let me redo that again. Okay. So we know that straight line from at 2010 is going to be 85,000 minus the 10,000 divided by 5 years. We know that for 2010 was 7 months, right? From June 1st to December 31st, the depreciation expense is going to be 15,000 times 7 over 12 is 8750. That's the depreciation expense, and the net book value is 76,250. When we do it for 2011, we know it's 12 months. It's 15,000 times 12 over 12 gives us 15. Net book value is 61,250. Now, the change happens to be on September 1st. So what we've got to remember is in 2012, we need to calculate January to August, which is 8 months. And we need to calculate the amortization expense for 8 months. And that would be 15,000 times 8 over 12 gives me 10,000. So the net book value prior to the change is 51,250. This is the net book value. I'm just going to circle this out. So this is the net book value as of September 1st, 2012. Now, we need to revise the straight line amortization or depreciation. And how do we do that? We're going to take the net book value prior to the change, which is 51,250, before change. Subtract the new residual value. In this case, the new is still the same. It's still the old because that did not change. Divided by the remaining useful life. So we know that the useful life went from 5 to 8 years. We take the new 8 years minus how old is the asset. So the asset is 7 months plus 12 plus 8. That gives us 19 plus 8 gives us 27 months. And 27 months is 2.25 years. Okay. So the remaining life is 5.75 years. Now you could convert this into months, but again, you don't have to. So take the 51,250, subtract the residual divided by 5.5 years to give you the amortized depreciation expense, annual depreciation expense of $7,173.91 per year. Now, we need to calculate the 2012 September to December amortization. Because remember, we need to finish this calculation. So really what this is just a sidebar calculation to help us calculate the depreciation for the remaining period. So here, there's 4 months. So it's going to be 7173.91 times 4 over 12. And that would be 2391.30. So the net book value is going to be 48,858.70. So the total amortization expense is going to be the sum of 10,000 and 23. So this will be the 2012. So therefore, 2012 depreciation expense is going to be $12,391.30. Okay. Now let's just continue on. You've got 2013. Again, that's 12 months, and we know what that is, $71,73.91. And net book value is going to be take 48 less 71.73 gives us 41,684.78. 2014, same idea, 12 months. That is 34,510.87. Okay. 2015, same idea. (2016), 12 months. Remember, it's 8 years now, right? We changed it to 8 years, so you would expect that we would calculate until 2018. But I want to do it all the way through to show you that this is the impact. (2017). Now 2018, remember we bought the asset on September 1st, which means that we have only 5 months to amortize this asset. So we've got 7173.91 times 5 over 12 gives us 2989.13. Net book value is going to be 10,000. So you notice that the net book value equals residual value. And if I was to add all the amortization along the way, this number should be 75,000. The total amortization should be 75,000. Now, what if it was a double declining balance? So let's do that. If it's double declining balance, here's what we would do. So under double declining balance, again, case A. So the current, we know it's 1 over 5 years times 2 is 40% rate. Okay, so we know that in 2010, it's only 7 months because we bought it September 1st. So the depreciation expense is going to be 40% times 85,000, or so 86,000, times 7 over 12 to give us 19,833.33. Net book value is going to be 85. So was it? It's 85. Sorry, this is 85. Okay, less 19,833 gives us 65,166.67. 2011 should be the same as our previous calculation, 12 months. It would be net book value 65,166.67 times 40% to give us the appreciation of 26. 066.67. Net book value would be 39,100. Now for 2012, there was a change, and that change happens when? The change happened on September 1st. So there are only 8 months from the old method, right? So 39,100 times 40 times 8 over 12 gives us 10,426.67. So net book value prior to the change is 28,673.33. So this is a very important net book value because this will tell us net book value before change. Now, once again, we need to calculate the revised. So this is the current depreciation rate. We want to calculate the revised amortization rate or depreciation rate. Now, here's the hard part. We need to divide 1 over straight line, the remaining useful life. Now, we know the remaining useful life is 8 years. That's the new minus 2.25 years, right? Right? So we already calculated that in the first case A under straight line. And that gives us 5.75 years. Times 2. So the amortization rate is 34.7826%. So now we're going to use that as the new rate to amortize or to depreciate the asset. So for 2012, for the remaining 4 months, we're going to take a look at the net book value prior to the change, 28,673.33 times 34.78% times 4 over 12. That's the amortization for the remaining 4 months to give us 3,324.44. Now, I've obviously rounded, so your answer may be a little different, but this is the rounded number. And the net book value is going to be the difference between 28,673 minus 3,324 to give us 25,348.89. So the total amortization for 2012 is this number and this number. Okay? Now, 2013, it's going to be 12 months. It's going to be 25,348.89 times 34.78%. That gives us 9,973.33, and net book value is going to be 15,375.56. 2014, another 12 months, 15,375.56 times 34.78 gives us 8817. Net book value 65.58.55. So we know that this has to be plugged, right? Because we cannot have amortization expense less than the 10,000. So we know this has got to be 10,000 equals residual value. Which means that we have to, in 2014, this has to be a plug to 5,375.56. Has to. Because that should be the amortization because we want the net book value to equal the residual value. Now, let's look at case B. Case B, let's go back to the question. And it says case B says the residual value is changed to 5,000, but the useful life remains unchanged. So again, it's asking us to calculate what is the impact under the straight line and double declining, assuming that the only thing that's changed on September 1st, 2012 is that the residual value changed to 5,000. So this is case B. So on September 1st, 2012, residual value changed from 10,000 to 5,000. That's the only thing that's changed. So once again, we're going to calculate using straight line. So under straight line, the amortization or the depreciation expense prior to change, we know it's going to be 85 minus 10 divided by 5 years to give us 15,000 per year. So we know for 2011, because there's only 7 months, we're going to take 15 times 7 over 12 to give us 8,750. So this is the depreciation expense. And the net book value is going to be 85,000 less 8750 to give us 76,250. Now for 2000, this is for 2010, sorry. For 2011, it's the full 12 months of amortization or depreciation. So it's 15,000. Net book value is 61,250. For 2012, we've got to actually determine the depreciation expense prior to the change, and that would have been 8 months, because remember, September 1st is really August 31st, which is 8 months. So we're going to take 15,000 times 8 over 12 to give us 10,000. So net book value prior to the change is 51,250. Now, the change means that we have to recalculate the residual value. So the revised straight line is net book value prior to the change 51,250. We're going to subtract 5,000, the new residual value. And the useful life we know is we've got 7 months plus 12 months, that's 19, plus 8 months, that's 27 months. And 27 months is 2.25 years. So it's going to be 5 less 2.25 years. Okay, so it's going to be the amortization expense, the yearly, is 16,818.18 per year. Okay, so let me just double check that number. Okay, so that's right. 16,818. So this is the depreciation prior to the change, and this is the depreciation after the change. So let's calculate 2012 for 4 months, because that change happened on September 1st, so September to December. That would be 16,818 times 4 over 12 to give us 5,606.06. Net book value will be 45,643.94. So the depreciation expense for 2012 will be 10 plus 5,606.06. So $15,606.06. 2013 is 12 months. And we know that's got to be 16,818.18. Net book value is 28,825.76. 2014, it's 12 months as well. Net book value is going to be 12,007.58. In 2015, we know there's only 5 months because that gives us the 5-year period. And 5 months is going to be 16,818.18 times 5 over 12. That gives us 7,007.58. Net book value is 5,000. And we know that has to equal the residual value at the end of its useful life. Now, under the double declining balance, you'll see that we're going to do the same thing. So we know that the current rate is 1 over 5 times 2, gives me 40%. And we know from our analysis in part 1, the amortization for double declining for 2010. So this is depreciation expense, net book value. This one is 85,000 times 40% times 7 over 12. Net book value is going to be 65,166. So this was 85. And for 2011, 12 months, 65,166.67 times 40%. 26. Now for 2012, it's only 8 months because the change happens on September 1st. So this one's going to be 39 net book value times 40% times 8 over 12. That's 10,426.67. Net book value will be the difference between these two is 28,673.33. And that's the net book value at September 1st, 2012. So now we're going to calculate the new rate. It's 1 over the straight line. In this case, the straight line is 2.75 years, right? Which is 5 minus 2.2, 5 times 2. And that gives us 72.7272%. That's the new amortization rate. So for 2012, the remaining 4 months, we're going to take the net book value of $28,673.33 times the new rate of 72.727%, multiplied by 4 over 12. Don't forget, you have to prorate because you're only prorating for for the last 4 months of 2012. That's 695111. So the net book value is going to be 21,722.22. For 2013, it's 12 months, 21,722.22 times 72.727%. We get 9,973.33. Net book value is 11,748.89. Now, 2014, 12 months again, 11,748.89 times 72.727% gives us 7,555.56. Net book value is 4,193.33. And notice that number is less than the 5,000. So we're going to have to plug. And this has got to be 5,000 to equal residual value, which means that the amortization is going to be less. 6,748.89 will be the plug amortization for the last year. Okay, we're going to continue on the next video. So for part C, we're going to change on September 1st, 2012, we're going to change the estimated useful life from 5 years to 8 years and the residual value from 10,000 to 5,000. So we're going to look at it from 2 different points of view. Under straight line, what's the effect? So we're going to change the residual value from from 10,000 to 5,000, and we're going to change the useful life short form UL from 5 years to 8 years. What's the effect? Well, first of all, we need to calculate the original straight line depreciation rate. So we know that is 85,000 was the original cost minus the original residual value of 10 divided by 5 years. That we had an amortization of 15,000 per year. So for 2010, remember we had 7 months. The depreciation expense is 85,000, or actually in this case we already calculated 15,000 times 7 over 12 gives us 8750. And this is net book value. So it's 85,000 less 8750 should give us 76,250. For 2011, we have 12 months, so we know that under straight line, the amortization is 15,000. Net book value is 61,250. Now for 2012, This change happens to be on September 1st, 2012. So we need to be mindful of the fact that in 2012, we had a partial year where we need to accommodate the amortization under the old method for 8 months. So we're going to take 15,000 times 8 over 12, and that gives us 10,000. Now, that means that net book value is 51,250. And this is as at September 1st, 2012. So now we're going to calculate the revised straight line amortization. And to calculate the revised straight line amortization, we need a net book value prior to the change, which is 51,250. We're going to subtract the residual value of 5,000. Now, we're going to divide it by the following. So we're going to change the useful life to 8 years. So 8. Now, how old is the asset? So we know the asset is 7 plus 12 months plus 8 months. That gives us 27 months, and 27 months translates to 2.25 years. And that gives us 5.75 years. Okay? And that gives us a revised amortization or depreciation expense of 8,043.4782 per year. Obviously, we're going to round that, right? So this is the revised depreciation expense, and we're going to use this number to calculate the remaining 4 months for 2012. So 2012, for the remaining 4 months after the date of change, we're going to take 8,043.4782 times 4 over 12, and that should give us 2681, 0.16. And that means that the net book value is going to be 48,568.84. So the key takeaway is when we have a change in estimate, and in this case, the change in estimate in case C is that the residual value goes down to 5,000 and the useful life goes up to 8 years, we need to calculate, first of all, the revised depreciation expense under straight line. And to do that, we need to determine the net book value of the asset at the date of change, or just the day prior to the date of change. In that case, it was September 1st, 2012 for 51,250. Subtract the new residual value of 5,000. We're going to divide it by the new remaining useful life. In this case, we're going to take the 8 years because we know that the useful life went from 5 to 8 years. But the key is that we got to figure out how many months or how many years has this asset been depreciated. In this case, we want to know the age of the asset. So we're going to take 7 plus 12 plus 8, that's 27 months. And 27 months comes to about 2.25 years. That's what we're subtracting. So you're amortizing or depreciating the asset for the remaining 5.75. Now, if we continue on, you'll see that in 2013, that's 12 months, we're going to take the 8,043.48 as the yearly amortization. Net book value is 40,525.36. And if you continue on, you'll realize that the total depreciation is going to be $80,000. So this continues all the way down to 2018. And of course, in 2018, you only have 5 months to amortize. But the total depreciation expense is going to be $80,000. And the net book value is going to be $5,000. Because we want $5,000 to be left. Because we changed our residual value in this assumption in case C to be $5,000. Now, what would this look like under the double declining balance? So, under the double declining balance, so case C, double declining balance, we're going to have to recalculate, just like we did with straight line, on September 1st, 2012. So in looking at the double declining rate, this is the original, we know it's 1 over straight line times 2, and that is 1 over 5 times 2 is 40%. Okay? So just like we did in the previous cases, for 2010, it was 7 months. Because the asset was bought in 7 months, we're going to prorate. So here, we're going to take $85,000, the original cost. Remember, we don't factor in the residual value in the double declining calculation, but we do incorporate it. We do have to be mindful of that residual value only at the end of the useful life, at the end of the last period of amortization, because you don't want to amortize or depreciate the asset more than the residual value. So in essence, the last period, you're going to have to plug the depreciation expense. So in this case, because this is the first year, we're going to take $85,000 times the depreciation rate of 40%, times 7 over 12 to give us $19,833.33. Net book value is going to be the difference between $85,000 less $19,833 to give us $65,166.67. For 2011, that's 12 months. We're going to take net book value of $65,166.67 times 40% is $26,066.67. And I got $39,100. 2012, prior to the change, we know that was 8 months. So we take the net book value times 40% times 8 over 12. And that should give us $10,426.67. So net book value is $28,673.33. This is the net book value as of September 1st, 2012. Now, we need to recalculate the revised double declining rate. So we know it's 1 over straight line times 2. Now, we saw from the straight line we had 5.75. So we know that was 5.75. So we're going to take 1 over 5.75, which is the remaining useful life, times 2, and that should give us 34.7826%. Okay, and that's what we're going to use to calculate the remaining 2012 for 4 months. So we're going to take the net book value times 34.7826% to give us Oh, times 4 over 12, of course, because it's only 4 months, right? Is 332444. And that gives us a net book value of 25,348.89. So really, for 2012, the amortization expense that you're going to record is the sum of these two. And if we continue on 2013, you'll see that it's pretty much the same as all the other calculations we've done for double declining. So here we're going to take the net book value of 25,348.89 times 34.7826%. And that should give us 9,973.33. And net book value is going to be 15,375.56. And the key is that you're going to continue to amortize this until the net book value should be $5,000, because that's what we've changed it to, right? So you want to make sure that the end, whatever that period, and in this case is actually 2015. So in 2015, what we're going to do is the amortization is going to be $1,558.75, leaving you with a $5,000 net book value. So that is your depreciation expense for 2015. Now, we're going to take a look at a different scenario in case D. In case D, it basically says, let's assume that we do have a change, but except in this case, we're going to focus on the units of production. Because if you remember, back in the original question, we had units of production of 100,000 made up of the following estimate. Now that we have used the equipment, the truck, and now we're able to revise our usage of the truck. Now that we know how the truck operates, how do we effectively calculate the amortization at the date of change? So the way it works is this. We know that the units of production, so this is case D, units of production, so first of all, we need to determine the rate, right? So step one is calculate the rate. Now this is the original rate, right? So we know that the original rate is 85,000 minus the original 10,000 residual value divided by 100,000 kilometers gives us 75 cents per kilometer. So for 2010, the amortization or the expense is, we've got kilometers of 7,000 here, and the rate of 75 cents. So the total depreciation expense is going to be the multiplication of those two, which is 5,250, and net book value is going to be 85 less 5,250 is 79,750. Then we continue on in 2011, and you'll see that in this question, 2011, we were given 24,000 kilometers, right, in the original question. So we're just going to multiply by 75 cents to give us 18,000, and that gives me 61,750. Now, for 2012, we're told that prior to the change from January So this is from Jan to September 1st. The total kilometers was 11,000. Okay? And the 11,000, we're going to multiply the 11,000 by 75 cents, because that was the date prior to the date of change. Give us 8250. Net book value is 53,500. This is the net book value as at 9/1/12. Now we're going to use that to calculate the revised rate. And the revised rate is exactly the same way. We're going to take the 53, which is net book value prior to the change, subtract the 10,000, because that has not changed. Now, we're going to divide it by the remaining kilometers. So the remaining kilometers. In this case, we're going to add the 8,000 plus the 14 plus the 16 plus the 15 plus the 7. Those are the remaining kilometers, and that should give us in total 60,000 kilometers to give us the new rate of 0.725 per kilometer. And that's what we're going to use for 2012 from September to December 31st. We know there was 8,000 kilometers at 0.725. So 8,000 times 0.725 to give us 5,800. And then our new net book value is 47,700. So this is actually our total depreciation expense for 2012. Now we have to calculate it separately because the change happened on September 1st. So the key takeaway is when we have units of production, we first have to calculate the rate, the amortization and depreciation rate. And in our case, it was 75 cents per kilometer. So you would multiply based on usage. Now you don't prorate, obviously, because remember we bought this asset, this truck, on June 1st. You don't prorate with units of production because conceivably that 7,000 kilometers has already been the reduced use, the reduced kilometers based on a partial year. So we don't prorate it. And you'll see that the same concept, if there was a change in estimate, so in our case we've changed the number of kilometers that we were going to use the truck on September 1st, we still got to calculate the net book value prior to the change, plug it back in and recalculate the rate by taking the net book value prior to the change minus the residual value. In this case it did not change. If it did, we would change that, of course, divided by the remaining kilometers, the remaining useful life, and that gives us 0.725, and then that'll give us 5,800. Now if we continue on, you'll see that in 2013 the total kilometers was 14,000 in our new estimate, and we're going to multiply with 725, and that should give us 10,150. Net book value is 550, sorry. And in the 2014, it was 10,000 kilometers. And that gives us 25,950. 2015, The total kilometers was 15,000 at 0.725 is 10,875. That is 15,075. And 2016, the last year was 7,000 kilometers at 0.25. And that gives us 5,075. And the net book value is 10. You could see that when you add a total depreciation expense, the total for the entire use is going to be 75,000, and this is the remaining net book value. And that should equal the residual value. Okay? Thank you.